So up to now, we've been creating JavaScript that just gets rendered as the page is being displayed. So as the page came across the document right, it wrote the JavaScript. But what I said initially was that JavaScript interacts with our users, and we haven't done any of that yet. So that's our next step, is we're going to create a button that interacts with our user. Wait, what? Okay, so first I'm going to create a new div. I'm going to start kind of with a new idea. I'm going to copy what we've done up here. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to put a period. I'm going to use Emmet to create this, so this is kind of a shortcut if you like it. I'm going to say create a div with a class, so I'm going to use a period of container, and I have a second class of heading, just like I did up here on line 18. I'm going to try to replicate that. And so then div.container, and then a period because I want another class, and I'm going to create another class of heading. And what that should do is I'm just going to make an h1 as a test just to see if it worked. Make sure I save it. And now when I refresh my page, I should have another one of these same formatted, which I do. So that looks good. All right, so I've just replicated what we've done up here. I'm creating another class of a container and heading. But this isn't really what I want. I don't want an h1 because I'm going to do something different. All right, so what I want to do first is I'm going to create a paragraph. And I'm going to do something we haven't done before. And I want to say when the user clicks on my paragraph, I want you to do something. I want JavaScript to jump in and do something when the user clicks on this paragraph. So we're going to type in the word onClick. Notice that I'm putting it inside the open. Let me put a space here so you can see. I'm putting this onClick command inside the p tag. So onClick is a JavaScript command that I'm embedding inside this p tag, and I'm going to say onClick equals, and now I have to put what I want JavaScript to do when somebody clicks on this p tag. And so I'm going to use something called alert, and then I'm going to put in here hello. All right, and so let's see what happens. So I have onClick, so when somebody clicks on this paragraph tag, so I better put something in the paragraph tag so I know click me. So I know what to click on. So when they click on this text inside the paragraph tag, JavaScript, I want you to put up an alert box, is what it's saying, and put up whatever inside this open and close curly braces, open and close quotation marks, a string, which should be hello. So let me make sure I save this, and let's see if that in fact works. So now I see the word click me, and when I click on it, you can see that a pop-up box has come up, an alert box has come up with this hello. This part is just something that the browser does. I don't have any control over that, but I do have control over what's being displayed, the text that's being displayed, and then I click on OK. And so now what we've effectively done is we've interacted with our user. So JavaScript kicked in after our user did something. The browser's listening. If I click on something else, nothing else is happening, right? So, but just when I click on this p tag, this onClick is something for the JavaScript to say, I got to pay attention. If somebody clicks on this paragraph, anything inside the open and close p tag, then I need to put up an alert box, which is what you just saw, with whatever is inside the parentheses. Well, inside the parentheses, we put a string called hello. You could also put my name. Remember, you could put your variable name in there too without the quotations. Let me just demonstrate that. So if I put in my name without the quotations, then it's going to put whatever was inside that variable. So let's see if that works. So I'm going to refresh my page, click me, and now I'm getting that. So perfect. Now we're interacting with our user a little bit more, and that is we are interacting with them clicking on something. In other words, clicking on this particular paragraph. So let's take that another step further. I'm going to incorporate Bootstrap into our click event. Wait, what? So I'm going to go into Bootstrap, and I'm going to go down to components, and I'm going to find a button. And if I click on button, then I have Bootstrap that does buttons. And so what I want you to notice here in Bootstrap is that all of these buttons have two classes. The base class is what we call it, BTN, which presumably makes all of these have these nice little hover thing, and then they have these nice little corners. But if you add the second class, then you're going to change the color. So button primary is this color, and you can see it's labeled pretty clearly, secondary, button success, etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these buttons, I'm just gonna, it doesn't matter which one, and I'm gonna create a button. I'm gonna put it after my paragraph tag. So let's see what happens if that works. So now when I click on refresh, I do in fact have a button that is nicely styled by Bootstrap, but it doesn't do anything. Notice I'm clicking on it and it doesn't do anything because I need to add some JavaScript to interact with that button. So we can do the same thing we did here, where we can do an on-click event. And let's just copy this for simplicity for now, on click. So I'm going to copy that. And it doesn't matter where in here you put it. You can put it anywhere within the open and enclose angle brackets. I'm just going to put it at the end. You can put it wherever you want. So on click equals alert my name. So just like we did here with the click me, but now we're using the styling from Bootstrap to make a button that looks nice, and then we still are getting the same functionality we got in the P tag up above. All right, so let's make this a little bit more meaningful as best as we can in this example. I'm going to comment out this paragraph tag and utilize our button. And we're going to say, let's see, the word primary doesn't make sense. Remember, commenting out means don't do this part. Just, I'm going to leave it on my code, but I don't want the browser to actually do anything with it. Instead of the word primary, I'm going to have my button say hello. And then instead of alert my name, we're going to go back to hello. Remember, that's in a string, so literally whatever I have inside this quotation marks is what we're going to print out. So let's just see that work before I move on. When you're writing code, just kind of an FYI, I would always suggest do one bit at a time. So just do something small, make a small change, and test it to make sure it's working before you move ahead. Because if you write a whole bunch of code and then test it, and then something goes wrong, it's hard to know where to start looking for your errors. So I just do little bits at a time and I test it. It looks like everything is doing what I expected. I'm getting an alert box that says the word hello. And when I click on OK, so this button is interacting with my user on a click, and it's putting up an alert box that says hello. So it looks like everything is working so far. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is interact with our user even more. So I'm going to make a script tag because I'm going to write some JavaScript that's going to give me the ability to interact with my user. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to prompt the user. In fact, let's look at our example here. I did it a little bit different here, but let me refresh my page. And I'm asking the user for information. So this is what we're going to do next. We're going to create the ability to have our user enter in some data, and they ask for, what is my actual name? I said Stitch. And what you're going to see is we're going to take that value that they entered in this box and update our button. So whatever said this is, we're going to change the text in our button based on what they type in here. So when I click on OK, you see now that that stitch got added to our button. So that's what we're going to do in this example. All right, so we're going to create a script tag. I'm going to create a new variable. So remember to create a new variable, a new place in memory. Hey browser, put a place in memory beside the one that you already did up here with my name. So that one's still there, but I'm going to create a new place, and I'm going to say let's create a new name. And what I'm going to do, instead of giving it a value like we did up here, I'm going to put up that box that we just saw. And in order to do that, we're going to use the word prompt, and then in parentheses I'm going to put in quotation marks. Let's say, what is your username instead? Username. It's a little bit different from the example I gave you, but it's still the same idea. All right, so let's see what happens when we do this. So we have this prompt. What's happening? Let me make sure I save it. I have to refresh my page because this is only going to happen at runtime. When the page actually loads, that's when this script is going to run, because everything goes in order, right? So it's going to create this div, it's going to create the button, it's going to remember to listen for a click, but it's not going to actually do this unless the user clicks on something. It's then going to hit our script tag, and it's going to say, oh, I've got to do this JavaScript that's inside of this open and close script tag. So when I refresh the page, we get prompted with that box. So that's what prompt is. Prompt is a box that comes up, and here's your string. Here's what you put inside that quotation marks. What is your username? So whatever they put into this box, as soon as they hit OK, that value is what's going to be put into your variable. So if I put in my username as Stitch here, what's happening is, I'm going to click on OK. Stitch got put into new name. Well, I didn't do anything with that variable, so I can't verify that. So I'm just going to put my semicolon. Oops, that's what I get for being a smarty. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate what I suggested before. Let's console log what got returned into new name, so I can see that in fact that stitch got put into this variable that I can use for use in my code. In this case, I'm just going to console log it or display it in my console so that I know that it was working. So again, doing one step at a time just to validate or verify that what my code is doing is what I expected it to do. So now if I type in the word stitch, presumably stitch is getting put into new name, and that's what should be displayed here in my console. So let's see what happens. So in fact, stitch is being displayed in my console. So now I know that in this variable, I'm getting a value from the user. So I'm interacting with my user and I'm getting information from them, which at the moment I'm not doing anything with, I'm just console logging. So here's where things get really kind of fun for me anyway. I think this is pretty cool. So in our demonstration, we saw that when the user types something in, presumably that value that they typed in our prompt box got put into new name, we updated our button. Our button content changed dynamically without reloading the page or sending this to the server to give us a new page. So how does that work? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I need some way to tell the browser to look at this unique button and change the data inside of it. So I need to give specific commands. Remember, a computer is really very stupid. It does exactly what you tell it to do, but it can't fill in the blanks. It can't just guess. Oh, a button? Yeah, I'll find a button and change the stuff. It's not that smart. We have to be very specific. So we have to have a tool that says, or a command that says, grab a particular element. I need a unique element to do something with. So that's where an ID comes into play. And so I'm going to give this an ID equals username. So we've learned that an ID has to be unique, that there can only be one user name ID on this page. There can be lots of IDs, but only one ID username. Maybe this one is ID paragraph or whatever, but the point is an ID is unique, and the reason for that is about to unfold. Because we have a unique value, a unique ID that identifies this button separate from anything else on this page. So I could have 12 buttons on this page, but only this button has a username, which means I have a way now in code to identify or call out this unique button from all of the other ones. And so what we're going to do in our JavaScript is we're going to use this syntax, document get element by ID. Now notice my casing on that. That's very important. Get capital element, capital E, capital B, and capital I. So every new word, get element by ID. So that even intuitively tells you go get an element by an ID, and then I'm going to finish this out in quotation marks, the name of the ID that you want to identify your element with. So I want to go get an element. In this case, in my mind, it's the button. It doesn't know what kind of element you want to get. It's just saying any element that has an ID that you put inside these quotation marks, I'm going to go grab. So in code, we're saying go find this button. And now that you've got this button, I want to do something with its content. And there's lots of things that we can do, but in this case, we're going to do, and we'll see an example of another thing, but right now we're just going to do inner HTML, and notice the casing on that. So that's very important. Inner capital HTML. And what you're saying is equals, let me just leave this out. I'm going to put new name for the moment, just so I can finish out that sentence, that statement. So inner HTML says anything between the opening, go grab this element, which is this button. Inner element, inner HTML says anything between that element's open and closing tag. So button has an open tag that starts here, a closing tag that is here. So everything in between here, we're going to change the text. So what used to say hello is now just going to be whatever the user typed into new name. So let's see that happen. So I'm going to refresh. What is your name? I'm going to type in the word Stitch. The code is going to go find that button that has the unique ID of username, which is this button. And it's going to change the inner HTML. So whatever was in say hello, whatever between the open and closed tag is going to change to just Stitch. Let's see. Let's just see it happen. And it did. So now we're dynamically changing content based on our user input. That's what JavaScript does. So we can put our, let's put our skills to use here. Let's say something like say hello. We're going to concatenate, say hello, and then I'm going to put the plus sign. So now I'm joining together a string, say hello, and then join in whatever was in that variable name. Hopefully that's repetition is kind of coming into play. So now if I put in something else, let's say, I don't know, I'm not coming up with a name. Jabba the Hutt. I don't know why that's in my head, but it came up. So what is in your username? And we're going to click on OK. And you're going to see now that our concatenating string is say hello, Jabba the Hutt. And so we click on the button and we get that same functionality we already put into place. So now what we're seeing is our ability to really interact with our user. And so in this example, we created a button that has an on-click event. So it's waiting for us to click on that element, being the button. And when we click on the button, here's what we want JavaScript to do. Put up an alert box that says hello. We also created ourselves the ability to interact with our user with our prompt. So remember, the prompt is asking the user for something. In this case, we said to please put in your name. So whatever you put into quotations is what's being delivered to them in the question. Whatever they type in is going into the variable that we just created. We console logged it just so we could see it as a developer, but our browser isn't going to put it on our web page. We used document get element by ID to grab a unique element. In this case, we grabbed this button because the IDs match. So go find an element with the ID that we put inside these quotation marks. So we have to make sure that we have an element that has an ID that matches. And then do something with that element. Well, in this case, we said dot inner HTML, go grab what's in between the open and closed element tags. In this case, it's buttons. And replace what was ever in between the open and closed tags with whatever we put here after the equal sign. And that was a string, say hello, concatenated or joined with whatever we had in our variable name.